Don't let USCIS keep you from your immigration benefit. Hi, I'm Jim Hacking, immigration lawyer practicing law throughout the United States at our offices in St. Louis, San Diego, and Washington, D.C. Back a few years ago, my wife and I were approached by a young lady who had her naturalization case denied. She was living in Virginia, and she'd had her green card for several years, which she won on the diversity visa lottery. Now, truth be told, this young lady spent a lot of time inside the United States and a lot of time outside the United States. That is, she went back to visit her mom and her family frequently back in her home country in Africa. Her name was Zainab, and Zainab didn't have a lot of ties to the United States. Zainab lived with her aunt and uncle in Virginia, and although she had the amount of time that she needed in the United States, which is at least half the time in the United States, in order to apply for citizenship, she had this one trip, and this one trip was really what caused her all these problems. Now, remember, if you apply for U.S. citizenship after having won the diversity visa, you have to wait 5 years. And you have to show that during those 5 years that you've lived in the United States for at least 2.5 years plus 1 day. It's your burden to demonstrate that you've been in the United States for at least 2.5 years plus a day, or 3 years or whatever. Anything over 2.5 years, you can apply for citizenship, and you have the amount of time residing in the United States. Now, Zainab was well over that. She had like 3.5 years. But what she had also was this trip outside the United States for 181 days. 181 days. Now, the law says that if you've been outside the United States for more than 6 months, that can break your residence in the United States. So even though she had 3.5 years out of 5 in the United States, she had this trip that might or might not have been too long. That is, that once you've been gone for 6 months or more than 6 months, then USCIS can make a determination as to whether or not you abandoned your residency. And because Zainab was very young, and because she didn't own any property, and because she didn't have a full-time job in the United States, USCIS looked at that trip on 181 days and said 181 is more than 6 months. 181 is 1 day over 6 months, because 6 months equals 180 days. Now, this does sound like math, and I promise you, in most of my videos, I don't talk about math. I don't like math. I got a C- in college algebra. The reason I became a lawyer is because I don't like math. But sometimes you win a case with math. And in this case, we did win this case with math, and here's what we did. So, all we had was a purely legal argument. Zainab did not have enough time in the United States to overcome this trip of 181 days outside the United States. We needed to make a purely legal argument that 181 days does not equal 6 months. So how did we do it? Now, I will admit that we pulled this one from way out in left field. We said to ourselves, well, a year is 365 days. And a year equals 12 months. And so 12 months should be 365 days, which means that 6 months should be half of 365, which is 182 and a half. 182 and a half. We were actually looking at the timestamp on when she landed in the United States, and we were able to demonstrate that she was just at 181 days. So we argued that 181 days was less than 182 and a half days, and Amani, my wife and fellow law partner and immigration lawyer extraordinaire, flew to Virginia to attend the N-336 hearing with Zainab. So, of course, if you get your citizenship denied, you can apply for administrative appeal with the N-336 form. This is to get a new hearing on whether or not you get your citizenship. So Amani went in with a brief and with all the proof of Zainab's travel, and documented and argued that 181 was less than 182 and a half, that was less than 6 months, and that therefore she was within the time period and had not broken her residency. Now, Amani had to win that argument because, as I mentioned, Zainab didn't have property in the United States. She didn't even have a bank account in the United States. And if I remember correctly, she worked as a hairdresser in Maryland or Virginia, wherever it was that she lived. And that is all the ties that she had to the United States. So we needed to win this legal argument. Amani shows up at the N-336 hearing, and you may not know this, but most lawyers don't file N-336s. Most immigrants don't appeal when their naturalization gets denied. They just wait a while and refile. So this officer was surprised that Zainab had taken it this far. And more importantly, he was surprised that he had this petite Egyptian lady with all of her long curly hair and all of her excitement and all of her arguments about 181 is less than 182 and a half. And you know what? Zainab got her citizenship. Zainab became a U.S. citizen, and Amani won her argument. Amani convinced that officer that, hey, she's right. It's less than 6 months. So therefore, there was no break in the continuous residency for Zainab, and Zainab was entitled to her U.S. citizenship. So a little later, Zainab got sworn in as a U.S. citizen, and she's one of the many people that we've helped here at Hacking Immigration Law get their citizenship. We love helping people become citizens. We're on a mission to help 10,000 people become citizens by the end of 2030. So if you know anyone who's thinking about applying for citizenship and needs our help, we'd love to help them because it'll help us achieve that mission of helping so many immigrants become citizens by the end of 2030. And we have a long way to go because right now we're even under 1,000. So we have a lot of help that we need from people like you watching these videos. So if you know anyone who has had their citizenship denied and wants to appeal it, or if you have anyone who is worried about applying for citizenship and wants to apply but thinks that they might need a lawyer, please feel free to give us a call, 314-961-8200. Email us info@hackingimmigrationlaw.com. Also, you can join us in our Facebook group. It's called Immigrant Home, and there are plenty of people, immigrants and people who love immigrants, who are in that group talking about the immigration issues of the day. And of course, we have our YouTube channel that you should subscribe to, because about 3 or 4 times a week, I'm going live in the YouTube channel and in the Facebook group where I answer your questions, as many as I can, in 1 hour. So we'd love to see you in any of those places. We'd love to work with you if you're thinking about hiring a lawyer. Otherwise, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.